Welcome back. So one of the first things we're going to need when programming is access to some sort of console or log or some sort of feedback about our program working in the most simple possible way. So in this video, we're going to be talking about runtime messages for feedback. So we're using a UE log, a macro, to print to the output console. Now I'm going to be using the word macro and Unreal header tool directive pretty interchangeably in this course. There are two types of things we're going to see in our code that are all capitals, and they're either going to be macros, which are something that the compiler Visual Studio runs just before compilation in order to actually insert or change code, or there's something that the Unreal header tool is using to do a very similar thing. The point is they both happen just before the compilation happens, and we don't really have a lot of kind of say or choice in exactly what happens apart from just writing the macro. It's kind of a black box. So I'm just going to use the word macro in general. So excuse me if you find that sloppy, but basically they do the same thing. And we'll see how that pans out later on. So we're going to be printing to the game screen as well. And for information, you want to start reading this. So let's just take a look at that. It's on your slides. It's a document here from Unreal that gives you some ideas. So let's start at the top. Quick usage, UE log like that. So let's just copy that code. This is something you may typically do. Go over to the editor, and then we're going to go to our smart chair and our position report method over here. Now, how are you going to get to this class, by the way? You can't double click it to edit it. You can't even right click it to edit it, but you can right click it and say find class in content browser. That will take you to position report script there, at which point you can double click it and it will open Visual Studio. Of course, another way is to browse through games, building escape, source, and then down here. Cool. So this is implementation. So I'm going to order things header, then implementation. And what I want to do here is I'm simply at begin play in the implementation of begin play. Here, I'm going to say paste. And instead of saying your message, I'm going to say position report reporting for duty, exclamation mark. And I may put a \n on the end, or I may not. Let's do it without. So let's have a quick look at how this guy works then. So it's a macro. Let's just call it a macro as the general term, okay, regardless of whether it's actually a compiler macro or an Unreal header tool. Log temp is the log it's going to. We can organize log categories later. Warning's going to make it come out in a particular color. You can see that over here. It'll talk about colors. Gray, if you call things a log. Yellow, if you call things a warning. And red, if you call things an error. So expect ours to come out in yellow. Then you say comma text, another macro, which takes in a string. Okay, so let's just try it. We'd expect this to happen on the construction of this position report. You can either put it there, or let's put it for simplicity actually down here in begin play. It doesn't make a lot of odds which way you put it, but for simplicity, let's just put it down here in begin play, because it's obvious what's happening here. When the game begins to play, it's going to print something. Let's try it. Now, you do need to save your Visual Studio file, and then you can either build by right-clicking here and build, which we'll do this time, or you'll find that as long as you've saved your file, you could also come over to Unreal and click compile. So we want to make sure that that does actually compile. Look, here it's running that Unreal header tool, something it does along here. Okay, and that's doing some magical work for us, all very powerful and cool, but a little confusing in the early days. And then in a minute, it says the build has succeeded, so we can go to Unreal, and we can click play. And of course, we're going to need access to Window, Developer Tools, and then Output Log. Position report, reporting for duty. Fantastic. We have in our log temp category a warning saying that, so we can see it. Great.
Sam here with a little note about this red warning message you're seeing up in the top left. You'll see this a lot because lighting is something that is statically built in Unreal, so that pretty lighting can be really efficient, but it takes a very long time to build, so we don't do it all the time. However, if you do want to get rid of this message just for a little bit, then you can go ahead and hit the build button that will build lighting amongst other static things that get built in Unreal, and the message will go away. However, if you move any static objects around, the message will come back up again because you need to rebuild lighting. Anyway, that's what this message is about. Nothing to be alarmed about, and we will mostly be ignoring it.
You could go ahead into the code and change that. You could change all sorts of things about it if you want to. You could change it to a different type, an error, or just a log. I suggest a warning or an error for now because they're going to show up amongst all these other grey entries quite nicely. Later, we'll start using these as categorized properly, if you like. So the position report is reporting for duty. That is great news. What I want you to do is to make this, well, I'll do this first bit and then I'll give you a challenge. It's going to be a little tiny bit easier for you. So position report, reporting for duty, I'm going to say on chair in this case. I'm going to hard code that it's on the chair, okay? I'm going to save, so there's no star up here. I'm going to go back to Unreal and compile from inside Unreal. It does the same thing. It calls upon your IDE, Visual Studio Xcode, etc., to actually compile the code. When that's finished, which can take a little while, something we have to get used to with Unreal. There are things we can do, by the way, to improve the compilation speed later, inlining and various other things. Now if we play, it's going to say on chair. Okay, pretty simple. So I have a challenge for you. I'd just like to show you one quick thing before we dive into it, though. Click on Details, make sure you have the chair selected. Click on Details, and I want you to see here on the top left of Details, when you add component, you can actually search for components. And you can find in this list, if you look through, under Custom, our position report. Okay, so you're going to need that for the challenge. Otherwise, I think you can do it. So here it is. So I want you to add the component to a second object in your scene. Add our new component to a second game object of the same type, of a static mesh actor type. If it works, you'll get a second log, and we'll see next how to read the actual object name to customize that log entry. So go ahead, pause the video, and just see if you can get a second log entry appearing now. Okay, welcome back. Let's take a look at this. Go to Add Component, scroll down to Position Report, and when you click it, you'll get Position Report added like this. Now when we play, we get two reports. Now they're both saying on chair at the moment, which is a problem, and we'll see in the next video how we can actually access the name of the object that's making this log entry so that we can be sure what's coming from where and make some progress into reading from Unreal's class system. So well done getting this far, and I will see you soon.